Keanu Reeves stepped into Etoile, one of the most exclusive restaurants in Los Angeles. Dressed in his usual understated black suit, he looked like any other high-profile guest. The restaurant was dimly lit, with chandeliers casting a warm glow over the pristine white tablecloths. The scent of truffle risotto and aged wine lingered in the air. He had come in alone, hoping for a quiet dinner. But as he took his seat at a private booth, he noticed a waitress approaching with a tray in hand. She was stunning, dark wavy hair, bright eyes, and an air of confidence that made her stand out from the rest of the staff. "Good evening, sir," she said, offering a polite but slightly impatient smile. "Welcome to Etoile. Our chef's special tonight is Wagyu steak with—" She trailed off, suddenly narrowing her eyes at him. Her expression shifted from professional to annoyed. "You look familiar," she muttered. "Are you one of those wannabe celebrities who think they can waltz in without a reservation?" Keanu raised an eyebrow, amused. "Excuse me?" She huffed, tapping a notepad. "Look, buddy, I know your type. Guys who think they're important because they've been in, one indie film? This place is for serious clientele. If you don't have a reservation, I'm going to have to ask you to leave." Keanu suppressed a chuckle. He could have revealed the truth right then and there, but where was the fun in that? "So, let me get this straight," he said, resting his elbows on the table. "You think I'm some washed-up actor trying to sneak in?" "That about sums it up," she replied, crossing her arms. "Well, that's a first," Keanu mused. "Most people recognize me instantly." "Ah, you're one of those guys," she groaned. "What's your name? Let me guess. Chad? Or maybe Blake?" "Keanu." She blinked. Her lips parted slightly before she burst into laughter. "Oh, sure, Keanu. Like Keanu Reeves. Nice try, buddy." Before he could say another word, the restaurant's manager, an older gentleman in a crisp suit, rushed over, looking panicked. "Mr. Reeves, I apologize. I didn't realize you had arrived." The waitress stiffened. "Wait, what?" The manager turned to her, his face pale. "Sandra, this is Keanu Reeves. You know, the Keanu Reeves, the man who owns this restaurant." Sandra's face drained of color. She looked at Keanu, her mouth opening and closing like a fish out of water. "Wait, you own Etoile?" Keanu gave her an easy smile. "Guilty as charged." Mortified, she quickly tried to recover. I was just joking. You know, testing your humility. You totally passed." She forced a laugh. Keanu chuckled. "Don't worry, I like honesty. It's refreshing." She sighed in relief, though her cheeks were still burning. "Well, in that case, what can I get you, boss?" He leaned back, enjoying the moment. "Surprise me, Sandra." And just like that, the most unexpected shift in her career had begun. Little did she know, this night would change her life forever. Hope you like it. Let me know if you want any tweaks.
Here's the next part of the story. A beautiful female waitress insults Keanu Reeves at a fancy restaurant, not knowing he owns the restaurant. Part 2. Sandra's hands trembled slightly as she scribbled down Keanu's order. Of all the people I could have insulted, it had to be my own boss. She stole a glance at him, calm, collected, and surprisingly unfazed by the whole thing. If it were anyone else, she might have been fired on the spot. Instead, Keanu seemed entertained. As she walked back to the kitchen, she could feel the other staff whispering. The head chef, a grumpy Frenchman named Pierre, raised an eyebrow as she handed him the order. "Ah, so you are serving the big boss tonight, oui?" He smirked. Sandra groaned. "You heard?" "Everyone heard," Pierre chuckled, throwing a slab of Wagyu steak onto the sizzling pan. "You insulted Keanu Reeves! The man is Hollywood royalty!" Yeah, I get it," she muttered. "I messed up. But come on, it's not my fault he looks so normal." Pierre smirked. "And yet he is your boss. And he is a good one, too. You are lucky he has a sense of humour." Lucky indeed. But she couldn't shake the embarrassment burning in her cheeks. An unusual conversation. A few minutes later, Sandra returned to Keanu's table with a perfectly plated steak, golden truffle fries, and a glass of vintage red wine. She placed the meal in front of him, standing awkwardly. "Enjoy," she said stiffly. Keanu picked up his fork but didn't start eating right away. Instead, he gestured for her to sit. Sandra hesitated. I'm working." "I own the place, remember?" he said with a smirk. "Take 5 minutes." She sighed, reluctantly sliding into the seat across from him. "So, Sandra, how long have you been working here?" he asked before taking a bite of his steak. "1.5 years," she replied. "It pays the bills." Not a dream job. Not exactly. I mean, don't get me wrong, I like it here, but... She hesitated before shrugging. I want more. Keanu wiped his mouth with a napkin, looking genuinely interested. More how? Sandra hesitated again. Was she really about to pour her heart out to Keanu Reeves? But there was something about him. He wasn't just some rich, untouchable celebrity. He actually listened. I want to act, she admitted. I've been going to auditions between shifts, but Hollywood isn't exactly welcoming to unknowns. Keanu leaned back, nodding. Yeah, I know the struggle. Sandra scoffed. Oh, please, you're Keanu Reeves. You probably just walked into Hollywood and people threw scripts at you. Keanu laughed, a deep, genuine laugh. Trust me, it wasn't that easy. I auditioned for years before I landed anything decent, got rejected more times than I can count. Sandra tilted her head. Really? Really, he confirmed. But you keep going. If you love it, you don't quit. She tapped her fingers on the table, considering his words. And what if I never make it? Then you'll know you gave it your all, Keanu said simply, and you won't have to live with regret. Sandra stared at him. Was this really happening? Was Keanu Reeves giving her life advice over dinner? Before she could say another word, the manager suddenly appeared, looking nervous. Mr. Reeves, I hate to interrupt, but there's a reporter outside asking about you. Apparently, someone recognized you. Keanu sighed. Of course. He looked back at Sandra, then reached into his pocket and pulled out a sleek black card. Here, he said, sliding it across the table. Sandra picked it up. It was a personal business card with his direct number. If you ever need advice or an audition tip, Keanu said with a wink, give me a call. Sandra gawked at the card in disbelief. Are you serious? Absolutely, he said, standing up. And Sandra? She looked up. You've got something special, he said with a smile. Don't waste it. And with that he walked out, leaving Sandra staring at the card in her hands, wondering if this was the beginning of something much bigger than she had ever imagined. What do you think? Want to continue? A beautiful female waitress insults Keanu Reeves at a fancy restaurant, not knowing he owns the restaurant, Part 3. Sandra sat frozen, staring at Keanu's business card as if it were made of solid gold. The world around her seemed to fade. Pierre shouting orders in the kitchen, the clinking of glasses, the soft jazz playing in the background. Had this really just happened? Did Keanu Reeves just offer her a direct line to him? Well, Pierre's voice jolted her back to reality as he leaned against the counter. Are you going to call him or just stare at that card until it turns to dust? I don't know, Sandra muttered, slipping the card into her apron pocket. I mean, what would I even say? Hey, remember me? The idiot who insulted you in your own restaurant? Pierre chuckled. Non, you say, hey, Keanu, let's grab coffee and talk about my future as an actress. Sandra rolled her eyes. Yeah, right. But as the days passed, she couldn't stop thinking about it. Every time she pulled out her phone, she debated texting him. Was this a real opportunity or just a polite gesture? Then, one evening after another grueling double shift, she made a decision. The message. Sandra. Hey, Keanu. It's Sandra from Etoile. Hope I'm not bothering you. Just wanted to say thanks again for the advice. She hesitated before hitting send. It was simple, casual, no expectations. A few minutes later, her phone buzzed. Sandra! Not a bother at all. Glad you reached out. How's work? Sandra blinked. He actually remembered her, and he replied. Still dealing with rude customers, but at least I haven't insulted another celebrity. Good to hear. You still chasing the acting dream? Sandra hesitated before replying. Trying. Auditions haven't been great, though. Hard to get noticed. Yeah, I get it. Want to grab coffee this weekend? I know a casting director who might be able to help. Her heart nearly stopped. Was he serious? Sandra, you're joking, right? Nope. Saturday at 10? Absolutely. Where? I'll send you the location. Looking forward to it. Sandra stared at her phone, hardly believing what had just happened. Pierre, who had been eavesdropping, smirked. So, coffee with Keanu Reeves, huh? You're moving up in the world. Sandra could only nod, a mix of excitement and disbelief swirling inside her. Whatever happened next, she knew one thing for sure. Her life was about to change. Want to continue? A beautiful female waitress insults Keanu Reeves at a fancy restaurant, not knowing he owns the restaurant. Part 4. The morning sun cast a golden hue over the quiet streets of Los Angeles as Sandra walked into the small, cozy cafe Keanu had picked. It wasn't some high-end celebrity hangout, just a quaint little spot tucked away from the usual Hollywood chaos. Her heart pounded. This was Keanu freaking Reeves. And he was introducing her to a casting director? She spotted him near the back, dressed in his signature black attire, sipping a cup of coffee. He looked up, smiled, and waved her over. "Hey, Sandra," he said warmly. "Hey," she breathed, still wrapping her head around the fact that this was real. Keanu gestured to the seat across from him. "Hope you don't mind. I already ordered you a cappuccino." She sat down, a little nervous. "Thanks. So, you really know a casting director?" Keanu chuckled. "I do, and lucky for you, she's looking for fresh talent." Sandra nearly choked on her cappuccino. "Wait, she's coming here!" "Relax," Keanu said with a grin. "She's cool, and she appreciates authenticity. Just be yourself." Before Sandra could process everything, the cafe door swung open. A tall, stylish woman in her 50s walked in, exuding power and grace. She spotted Keanu immediately and made her way over. "Keanu," she greeted, kissing him on the cheek. "You never fail to surprise me. Who's this?" Keanu gestured to Sandra. "This is Sandra, talented, determined, and ready for her shot." Sandra's mouth went dry. What was she supposed to say? The woman raised an eyebrow, studying Sandra. "I'm Evelyn Carter. I've cast for over 100 films and TV shows. Keanu tells me you're an actress." Sandra swallowed hard and nodded. "Yes, I'm trying to be. I've been auditioning, but it's tough breaking in." Evelyn smirked. "It always is. Got a monologue prepared?" Sandra blinked. "Right now?" "No better time," Keanu said, leaning back with an encouraging nod. Her heart raced, but she took a deep breath. She closed her eyes for a second, then launched into a monologue she had rehearsed 100 times, a powerful, emotional piece about loss and hope. When she finished, there was silence. Evelyn sipped her espresso, then finally said, "You've got something." Sandra's breath hitched. "I do?" Evelyn nodded. "Raw talent. A little rough around the edges, but that's fixable. I have a small role in an upcoming indie film. Nothing major, but it's a start. Interested?" Sandra's hands trembled under the table. "Yes. Absolutely." Keanu smiled. "Told you she was special." Evelyn stood up, handing Sandra a business card. "Call my office tomorrow. We'll set up a proper audition." Sandra took the card, barely believing what was happening. As Evelyn left, she turned to Keanu, eyes wide. "Did that just happen?" Keanu chuckled. "It did. And now, you've got your foot in the door." Sandra stared at him, overwhelmed with gratitude. "I don't know how to thank you." Keanu grinned. "Simple. When you make it big, don't forget about us little people." She laughed, shaking her head. "Keanu Reeves, you are not a little person." But in that moment, sitting across from one of Hollywood's biggest stars, she felt like the luckiest person in the world. And she knew this was only the beginning. The end. Or the beginning of something bigger. Want to continue the story with her first big role?